My name is Antoine Williams. I'm an interdisciplinary artist. I work in a lot of different media. Media. I work in paint, collage, drawing, a little bit of assemblage, sculpture, video, sounds, just anything I pretty much can get my hands on. And my journey essentially is to explore blackness, um, various aspects of that. I look at what I'm doing as being part of a larger conversation that's taking place. And so the work I'm making is my contribution to that conversation around blackness and contemporary black life. So things that motivate me, one, just I've always liked to make things or draw things. So just, I wake up and that's what I want to do. So I feel that it's innate to make things, no matter what it is. But then I'm motivated by subject matter, right? And so I want to draw, I want to put things together, but then it's the question, well, what is it about? And then I become motivated, you know, about society, the people around me. I look at things within society and question. I've always, ever since I was really young, I question why are things the way they are, right? And I look at my life as exploring that constantly. In terms of Black people, right? Like, why are things the way they are for Black folks? Why are oftentimes we are in the situations we're in? And you know, ever since I was a teenager or even a kid, I remember being young and looking at TV and wondering, like, why aren't there more Black people on TV, right? And so, and constantly questioning things. I've always liked to question the world around me, and so even as an adult, I still question. And so, me just questioning society and questioning and interacting with people, that's the motivation. And so, I'm motivated by these questions about what things, how things are, and then I use art as a way of expressing it, as a way of having that conversation. So, like in my personal life, my mom, she would draw. Like she doesn't draw anymore, but I remember being really young, and she would draw. She would tell me she would draw in high school. Um, and so, like as far as family, I don't have too many artists in my family, but I remember my mom is someone who could draw. Uh, Good Times was the first time. JJ Jimmy Walker was the first time I saw a Black artist, and I thought, oh, okay, that's what it is that I am essentially, right? Um, but now as an adult, there's a lot of different artists who I'm influenced by, or who inspire me, and it's um, Mark Bradford, Kerry James Marshall, people of that sort. But also, I get inspired by Black folks, like just sort of like our creativity, how we're able to endure the a lot of the stuff we have to deal with in society, and just the way, and just culturally the way we interact with each other. I think it's beautiful, and I want to contribute to that. And oftentimes, I'm really inspired by it. In a lot of my work, I am trying to talk about various aspects of contemporary Black experience, right? And so, depending on what aspect of that I'm looking at or I'm coming from, I want the work to sort of invoke that. But oftentimes, I'm pulling from different areas, right? So I'm looking at books, movies, and films. So I look at science fiction, but I also look at what's called critical race theory, and how race affects various parts of society. And so with my work, it's essentially, I'm looking at it as this moment in time. And at this moment in time, what are we as Black people talking about? What are we going through? And so I want to express that. But then there's the audience, right? And so how does the audience read it? And I'm not necessarily always interested in the audience necessarily getting every little thing out of it. If someone looks at my work and they feel motivated, that's fine. If it causes them to question things a little bit more, that's fine. Or if they look at the aesthetic, maybe aesthetic beauty of it, and they are okay with that, I'm fine as well. You just have to get your work in front of people, essentially. That's a lot. So there's making the work, and then there's doing all the other stuff. networking and marketing, and a lot of the business side of art, that's what that's about. And so it's being able to network with people, being able to get your work in front of people who have the income and have the desire to collect your work or and want to preserve it. So I have this question that I ask myself all the time when I'm making. It's because so I just like to make things, and I could just keep going and going and going on artwork. And so what I have to ask myself is, if I add something else to this piece or if I change something, will it help the piece? Or is it just me doing it because I want to? And if I can't honestly say, yes, this will help the piece, this will make the piece stronger, then I have to, pull away. And also, sometimes a piece just isn't done, and that's okay. Like one painting isn't the end all be all. Like in my life, I hope to make hundreds of pieces of artwork. And so sometimes I'm just like, okay, this is where I was in, June of 2019. And I can make a variation of that painting again, and it can be a little different, right? And so some pieces I feel like they're all there. Other pieces I do feel as if they may be lacking something, but I don't have the answer in the moment. And I think over time, you sort of get used to being like, oh, okay, that's where I was then. If I do it again, then I can change it and push it even further. I like to be aware of like what's going on. And I think sort of in the past 10 years, here's what I think has been happening in regards to specifically a lot of artists who are Black, is that we've been bombarded with images of Black death via like hands of like the police. And we're just seeing like Black suffering and, in a way that, like in the media, in a way that we hadn't seen before. And it feels as if a lot of artists, their response to that is showing the beauty of Black life, and so a lot of work is like in the past 10 years, there's been a ton of like really figurative work just showing Black people. And I feel like that's sort of a response to what's going on now. And it's been done before, in that in the 1960s during the civil rights era, you had all of these protests and violence. And out of that sprung up the Black arts movement, right? And so it's these group of artists, Black artists, who were making figurative work about, and what they saw as the Black aesthetic, right? And so you see these Black artists spring up making figurative work about Black life. And you're sort of seeing, or you've seen the same thing like in the past 10 or so years. So there's a lot of figurative work out there, but more recently I've seen abstraction start to creep in as well. And I don't know, with my work, I sort of do both abstraction and figurative work. So I don't try to follow the trends, but I just make the work, that I make. And so wherever I am, that's where I am. But I do like to try to be aware of them. The art world is a really tough place. Yeah, and like again, right? So there's making the work, and then there's the art world, right? Or the art market and all of that. And it's tough. It's making work for me is really, I don't want to say it's easy, like as if I just go in there and it happens, but I feel really comfortable in a studio making work. In regards to the art world and navigating that, I feel as if I'm always learning. And it's also just like making a work of art, right? There's a million different ways you can do it. And in the art world, there's this ideal of success. And the issue that I tend to have is that what tends to happen is there becomes this one, or there's very few ideals of what success is for an artist, and oftentimes it's related to fame, and I really have issues with that. I feel like there's a number of different ways of being successful as an artist, but you have to figure out what's the best way for you to navigate that to get to that point. And I'll be honest, I haven't truly figured it out, right? Like I'm still trying to figure out like where I want to go. Well, I kind of know where I want to go, but like, how do you navigate that? Because, it's not like it was, I wasn't making art like this 20 years ago, but 20 years ago, right, we didn't have social media, and that's completely affected how, you have like a much larger audience now as before you did, before social media. And so things are starting to change, and so you know, I'm using social media as a platform to market, to network with people. Um, you know, Travel has definitely shifted since COVID, but navigating the art world, it's different. It's difficult. It's really difficult, but bare bones, I look at it as just making sure your work gets in front of the people that you want to that you want to see your work, and also it's about building a community. Like trying to go at this alone can be really tough, and so I think it's really important for artists to build community with like-minded people, people who share your same values, and also who are going to support you as well, because art can be cutthroat at times. It's tough. Like things like last year, at the beginning of last year, things just started to dry up. Like things that I had in the bag that were really great opportunities just dried up. Like got canceled or pushed back. And for artists, a lot of things just didn't happen. And so a lot of artists, they depend on commission work and getting their work collected and these sorts of opportunities. And so a lot of the institutions slowed down or postponed or canceled stuff. And then you couldn't travel, so that means you couldn't go to exhibitions or go to residencies and things of that sort. And so it's been like the art industry's been hit really hard, right? And so you have the institutions, but then you have the artists. And so the institutions, they were hit hard because they deal with donor money and all that. But also the artists, oftentimes like artists, I think oftentimes people don't think of it this way, but artists are just a lot of artists are simply just working class people, right? And so it's just like if somebody worked at a bank, right? A teller at a bank, right? A lot of artists, they're just sort of, hustling, going from job to job. Many may not have insurance, and always the next paycheck may not always be promised. And so when these opportunities dry up, it gets really, really tough. And so it almost feels like your career has stopped in this past year. And I don't know, hopefully things will get back on track pretty soon. But it's been tough, and you've had to try to find ways to navigate that, to continue to sustain your career over this past year. So much advice in everything. Probably to build community, like much earlier on, to make sure you build community. You build community with people who want to build with you. I think that's really important. To continue to just learn as much as possible, to travel more, get your name out there. Don't worry about not being good enough. We don't really live in a meritocracy, so don't worry about always being, good enough, but just, get your name out there and build community. As far as the work that I'm making, I like to continue to ask questions, and I like to continue to explore with different media. And so I just want to continue doing that. I also want, just as far as the navigating the art world, I want to, have my work in front of more people. So, getting that aspect of my career together. But also just as I get older, again, like the art world can be a really tough place. And I want to be someone that, where I am in my career, I want to be able to sort of help people who are maybe like people who are a step or two behind me in their careers, artists who are just starting out. And so what can I do to affect the art world in a way that makes it more equitable, especially for like Black artists? Black artists, especially working class artists, it's really hard if you don't have, like a really steady financial, backing. It's really hard to make it. And so what can I do in whatever position I am to make things a little easier for those who are coming behind me? And so that's something I'm interested in too.